With the 15th pick and with the 26th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft, the Washington Redskins select Dwayne Haskins, Montez Sweat.
Welcome, all my fellow Redskin brethren and sistren. I am your man and president, Redskins fan, Lou. Thank you for joining me here on the Redskins Report. Look, I'm not one to drag other teams into our affairs. I'm not one of these guys that likes to compare other miserable situations to my situation. I'm not one of those people that takes solace in someone else's misery and makes me feel better because, well, at least we're not them. You know how many times I heard during this whole 3-13 season or these last, 5 or 6 years of ineptitude with this Redskins organization when it's really gotten bad these last 2 or 3 years under Bruce Allen and Daniel Snyder. But it's been bad for 20 years under Daniel Snyder, let's face it. But we've had our share of big-time moments back in 2012 with Robert Griffin III, back in 2015 with Kirk Cousins of recent note, back in the Gibbs 2.0 days where we went to the playoffs 2 times in 4 years. But for all of those years, there were many more bad low points. And there's always those low moments, and then one Redskin fan or another jumps in and says, hey, it could be worse. We could be the Browns, or it could be worse. We could be the Jags, or we could be the Raiders. I'm not one of those people that does that. I'm really not. But in this particular instance, I found myself saying, wow, I feel good about where we are right now. Let me just say, before I say everything I'm about to say, I actually like where we are right now. Now, we haven't won anything. We haven't done anything, but Ron Rivera is the right man for the job at the right time. We needed Ron Rivera more than he needed us. And he right now is like a life raft for a franchise that was drowning. He literally is a life raft because we weren't going to be saved if we didn't have a guy like Ron Rivera come along. So I thank him for choosing us because without Ron Rivera, this organization wouldn't be legitimized right now, but we would still be looked at as a laughingstock. He has literally given us legitimacy. He has given us relevancy. We're not looked at as just a laughing stock. We actually have a guy that gives us true credence right now. However, we still haven't won anything, but it makes us feel good going into the offseason. We have a reason to believe, something we haven't had in quite some time. We have a reason to have hope. So I said all of that to say this. I looked over today and I saw all of the nonsense going on with the Cincinnati Bengals. And I heard Carson Palmer on a recent show he was on say that if he had any word of advice for Joe Burrow, it would be to not play for Cincinnati. He said they don't want to win a Super Bowl. I mean, these are stinging and damning comments from a former #1 overall pick of your franchise and one of your best quarterbacks in franchise history. I get it. Ken Anderson is probably the best Cincinnati Bengals quarterback in their franchise's history. And Boomer Esiason, don't forget about him. They probably both rank ahead of Carson Palmer. But after those two, it's Carson Palmer. All right. And I'm not sure if he doesn't own many of the Bengals records. That's nor here nor there. All right. Those two guys led the Bengals to the Super Bowl. They didn't win it, but they took them to the Super Bowl. Carson Palmer never did that. Anyway, I digress. Carson Palmer is the most recent #1 overall pick by the Cincinnati Bengals at the quarterback position. And remember, his situation in Cincinnati ended tumultuously. He was the guy that wanted out, and they rather sit on Carson Palmer, force him into retirement than trade him. He doesn't have any good feelings towards the organization. So you got to take what he said with a grain of salt. But if anybody would know that they don't really care about winning in Cincinnati, it'd be Carson Palmer. He was there for the vast majority of his career. All right, at least half of his career was spent in Cincinnati. That being said, he makes those comments. Then after that, Steve Bartkowski, the former #1 overall pick of the Atlanta Falcons back in like 1974, 75, 76, somewhere in there, came out and said, look, as a former #1 overall pick as a quarterback in the face of a franchise, I know what it's like to be the number one pick. Not many people actually do. All right. Not many people actually know what it's like to be the number one pick and a quarterback. I do. And I'll take it a step further. Not many people know what it's like to be the number one pick in the draft, a quarterback as a number one pick in the draft, and being drafted by a horrendous franchise. I do. And I'm telling you, don't do it. Pull a Eli Manning. Don't go to Cincinnati. They don't want to win, and you're not going to win. He said, I spent the first 3 years of my career more time in the hospital recovering from getting my brains beat in than actually throwing touchdown passes. All right? Don't go to Cincinnati. And I'm thinking to myself, well, damn. God damn. You know, whoa. As bad as it's gotten in Washington, I've never once heard anyone ever say, hey, don't go to Washington. I've heard that about Jacksonville before they got rid of Tom Coughlin. The NFLPA was actually advising future free agents to steer clear of Jacksonville. Hey, never happened to the Redskins. Say what you want. There are people advocating, ex-players, ex-quarterbacks, ex-number one overall draft picks advocating, and you rarely hear this, advocating that you pull a Eli Manning, which is really taboo. That's not what we want. That's not what people want. You don't want someone pulling an Eli Manning and saying, nope, not going to play for your franchise, trade me. That's bullshit. All right. However, in this particular instance, all bets are off, and Joe's not making it any better. Okay. Because Joe could have easily said, look, whomever drafts me, I'll be ecstatic. I want to be number one overall, and I'll go to that franchise, and I'll try to help them turn things around. He could say that, but Joe hasn't said that. He pretty much said, if they draft me, they draft me. I don't even know what that means. Can somebody explain that to me? I don't even know if that's that's definitely not a ringing endorsement. Is that an endorsement? Is that a knock? That seems to be kind of straddling the fence, like you're right in the middle, like whatever. Anyway, that was the first thing I thought to myself, and I told you I'm not one of these guys, but the first thing I thought was, damn, I'm glad we're not them. As bad as it's gotten in Washington, it could be worse. We could be the Bengals. But then, immediately after that, like literally 1A, 1B, the next thought that popped in my head was, oh shit, what if he actually does pull an Eli Manning? They're going to take Chase Young. No, what are you doing? So, first of all, Cincinnati has already come out and said, we're taking Joe Burrow. And the thing that gives me comfort, the thing that I take solace in, is knowing that this is the same franchise that was bullheaded and stubborn enough to not trade Chad Johnson to the Redskins when we were stupid enough to want to give them 2 first-round picks for Chad Johnson once upon a time. You guys remember that? They didn't do it off of principle. They weren't going to trade Chad Johnson. All right? This is the same organization that had Carson Palmer say, either trade me or I'm going to retire. And they looked him dead in his face and said, okay, retire then. We're not trading you. And so he sat out an entire year before he ultimately got traded to Oakland. All right? I feel like even if Joe Burrow were to try to force their hand, this is the one organization that would actually dig their heels in and say, you know what? We're not going to allow you to punk us. You're not going to tell us what you're going to do. We're going to draft you, and either you're going to play for us or you're not going to play for anybody. And if there's one organization that would be bullish enough to do that, it's Cincinnati. So I actually feel confident that no matter what Joe Burrow says or does leading up to the draft, he's going number one overall. I don't give a shit what they do after the draft. Whether they pull a Eli Manning and Chargers and they draft him first and then they trade him afterwards, as long as you take Joe Burrow 1, you can do whatever you want after that. As long as he comes off the board 1 and Chase Young is sitting there at number 2, I am totally fine with all of the nonsense that goes on thereafter. But before then, you better not do anything stupid. Take Joe Burrow. All right? And hell, if you feel like he's not the guy or you feel like he's a cancer, take Tua. I don't really give a shit. Just don't take Chase Young at 1. And I feel confident as we sit here on February 18th. Now, this could change. You know what time it is. I don't have to tell you, but I'm going to tell you anyway. It's lying season. Believe half of what you see. None of what you hear, even if it's spat by me, your man, Louie T. Okay? It's lying season. So you can't buy all the hype. But I'm not saying, I'm just saying Carson Palmer is definitely in Joe Burrow's ear. Why? Because Joe Burrow is working with Carson Palmer's brother. All right? Jordan Palmer, the quarterback whisperer, the guy that all the big name QBs go to prior to the combine, prior to the draft. He gets these guys prepared. Every single year, the biggest quarterback prospects go to Jordan Palmer to work out. It's a new tradition. And Joe Burrow's falling in line. So you know if he's working with Jordan, Carson's got his ear too. So don't think for 1 second that Joe Burrow isn't hearing the noise and he's not being affected, because it went from his dad saying, if Cincinnati drafts him, he'll play, and Joe saying, look, I don't care who drafts me as long as they pay me. It went from that to, if they draft me, they draft me. Hey, look, man, it's trending in the wrong direction. As long as Cincinnati isn't bullied, I'm good. And I think of all the teams, if you ask me about the 32 franchises, which one would not allow themselves to be bullied by anybody? It's stubborn ass Mike Brown and the Cincinnati Bengals. So I feel very confident that when the Redskins are officially announced as being on the clock in the 2020 NFL Draft, Chase Young will still be available for the Redskins to select. How about you guys? How do you feel about this situation? Hey, look, it could be worse. We could be Cincinnati. We could be with a second-year head coach that looks like he was overmatched in his rookie season as a head coach. We could be a middling franchise with really no direction, no quarterback right now, and nobody really wants to come to Cincinnati to play quarterback. The guy that was here is about to be traded. The star receiver is coming off of an injury. Don't really know if he's going to be back. Don't know even know if he wants to be back. And everything else that could go wrong, that also is going wrong in Cincinnati. And half-empty stadium. We got some of that equation, but we don't have all of it. We could be worse. I feel good. And I like the fact that Cincinnati's ahead of us, because I think they're stubborn enough to take Joe Burrow no matter what. Anyway, I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. Remember, if it's not your man T, it's not, I repeat, not the best NFL coverage. It could be. I am a Redskins fan, etched in burgundy and gold. My Redskins spirit will never die. Redskins spirit will never fold. Until we meet again, hail to our beloved Washington Redskins. Leave it in the comment section. Dying to hear what you guys have to say about this whole scenario. Prepare yourself just in case he's not there. Redskins need to make sure they're doing their homework and their due diligence. Obviously, like I said, there's no way the Redskins can lose it too. I want Young above all else, but if he's not there, what can you do, right? You can trade out of two and absolutely mop somebody up. I'm talking about multiple picks being exchanged for the number 2 overall draft pick. And I like to think that there are a lot of teams, including Miami, that would love to give up a bunch of draft capital to get up to number 2 to take Joe Burrow. So I feel really good about where we are. But above all else, I want Chase Young. Anyway, I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the Louie T Network if you haven't already done so, and also check out the Louie T Network podcast. Newest episode available. Talk about a free agency a ton on that podcast, so check it out. Anyway, I'm out of here. You guys like the video. I'll see you guys on Thursday night, 8:30 p. live for the Redskins Report Live. I'll see you then. Until then, enjoy the rest of your week. Have a good one.
Louie T Network.